Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry. We're going to be discussing 30 Coins, episode number 5, The Double. This is like our 15th take. We've had a lot of technical issues and different things, but we're here. We're getting it up. So hope you enjoy this review. If you've not hit the sub button, please do so. Hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. And I believe there's 3 episodes left, and we're going to be reviewing every single one of them. This episode was amazing, as have all of them been. I was thinking, is there an episode I could pick as like my favorite, because they each have their own set story for that week as well as the ongoing story. But I really can't. I think they've all been strong, and they've all done a great job of having sort of that creature of the week plus the overarching story. In terms of that style of storytelling, where do you guys think this show falls? Sort of like an X-Files or something like that, because that's what I was thinking of. I think they do it phenomenally here.
I was going to say it's one of the better versions of that, just because of the structuring of the story. We've talked about, our gripes and other reviews for other shows. This one is not that. It gives us different points of view. It builds characters in a slower fashion, but it doesn't bore you. It always keeps you interested. It keeps you going. And then there's a lot of twists. There's a lot of little things that happen, but you never feel like something is not being closed. There's no open-ended stories. You feel like at least the stories that they're telling, they're coming to an end. There's going to be a resolution to those stories. And I'm not a script writer. I don't write screenplays. I don't direct. I'm not a producer, so I can't tell you, the technique that this is called, but whatever it is works for this genre perfectly, and he does a great job putting these together.
It's going to be very interesting to see where they go with this going forward, because we get that overarching plot, and we've had that mystery for a while, and we got a lot of those answers to a lot of the big questions with this episode. It was very surprising. Like Brian said, this could have been a finale, and would have been a finale of most shows that you watch. So that tells me that there are some greater things some deeper details for us to dive into later in this series. And I'm very curious what that is, seeing how we've gotten the interworkings of this organization that we've been following, since seemingly episode 1.
Yeah. And speaking on that, so basically Fabio, who's sort of the main, I guess, antagonist for the most part, he brings in Manuel, and basically is like, look, man, you have always been around at the right time when it comes to these coins. Clearly, me and you are supposed to be on this journey together. And he lays out the reason he's doing it. And he says, look, here are the Gospels of Jesus. I have access to this. The gifts given by the wise men happen to be books of magic, and I can do spells and this and that. How much closer to God can you be, if you're doing these things? And so he's basically explaining, this is why I'm doing this. Now, on the other side of things, Sandro, who is a good friend of Manuel, basically says, look, these are lies. You're being deceived. You're being manipulated. And Manuel basically agrees with him, and they make their escape, which leads into a shootout / monster attack, and Sandro is killed. But everything having to do with this order, a lot of it was, like you said, Larry, laid out. It was explained in this episode. Even the fact that, I think this was in the trailer for next week, but they have 29 of the coins. They only need the one to complete whatever this quest is they're trying to complete. But as far as all the storytelling, and if you want to go in more detail as far as that story with Fabio, I thought it was handled brilliantly. Real quick also, I said it last week, I love the not just sets, but the fact that they shoot on location. We got that amazing scene where they were going in that bunker and underground, and it's like, clearly this is a real underground whatever. I don't know what it is, but I love the way they shoot this thing. They shoot it at real cathedrals. They shoot it in these bunkers. They shoot it in, on set. Makes it feel even bigger,
Well, yeah, and that was one of the things that, increased the stakes here, because I think I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, it seems like what they're up against is insurmountable, and this made it worse because It's like now that order is not just embedded into the Catholic Church, and you don't know who's who. And there are people that are way more influential than Manuel that can turn the church against him. It's not just that. There's a lot of them. It's not like there's a handful of people or 20 or even 100. That was a big facility full of people that were all clearly part of that order, wearing the uniform. And like you said, we had a underground labyrinth. We had cathedrals. We had all these different facilities. They have libraries. They all seem to know magic and whatnot, and they have all these relics. So the big question is like, how do they combat this? How do they fight this? To which one of the answers I had is like, well, why did he throw away that spear? But it could be that perhaps Manuel views the relics that they're using as unholy in a way, and but even if that's the case, they've got to get their hands on some holy relics or something of their own in order to combat this.
Yeah. Bullets didn't work. He tried shooting that thing. It took like you said, the spear to help him escape. So yeah, he has to know that he's going to need something special. Maybe Antonio will play a role in that later because he has a bunch of relics in his little hut.
I think too, Larry, you were talking about, the scale of things, and Brian mentioned it too. When you think of how many people it was, I doubt that every single member was in that room when they were talking to Manuel. There's also people probably guarding. There's probably still people, because they showed people taking books in those little Kubotas or Gators or whatever, the little side-by-side type things that they had. And so there's a bunch of people that are not only believing what they're saying, but, working their asses off to accomplish these goals. So the scope of this reaches way farther than just the handful, because we saw probably 30 people-ish standing there talking to Manuel, but there was a handful of them that came from America. So how big is the American delegation? How big is so across the world, not just where they're at, how many people does this, organization have? And my guess would be, quite a few to be able to pull off what they've been doing.
What do you think about, I want to spend a few moments talking specifically about the gifts, because I like the wording of it, and I'm curious, especially if there's a season 2, which I hope there is, how that'll play in. He says that Jesus was gifted basically 3 books of magic, but he said these were designed to help you become a god, essentially. And they have spells, and clearly Fabio's been studying this shit because he can do magic and do various things. But if you have, where did those come from? Were they crafted by God? Was there another order? I have a lot more questions now after this episode too, in terms of how magic works in their world. Because when one of his guys was shot up by Manuel, he took the guy's blood and he started writing and saying stuff, spells or whatever, and then turned the guy into this creature.
Go ahead.
Well,
I was just gonna say, yeah, that's a good point, because it's the sort of thing like, how old are these magics, and and if they're misinterpreting them, if as Sandor implied, if they're getting half truths, and part of what they know is a lie, then what is the truth behind these magics and how they're supposed to work and what they're doing, and is there perhaps a better or older version of this, for that maybe Manuel or any member of the group, needs to perhaps study in order to combat this? Because I don't just see a group of 3 random people who are in the know about this. Well, I guess technically 4, because we got a lot of hints. We're seeing I think a 4th main character on this show. Like I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but we're seeing an awful lot of the police officer for this in this town. Like we see quite a bit of him, so maybe he'll be involved and help a lot too. But as you mentioned, that may not matter, because just shooting these things doesn't seem to be enough. So yeah, what is the deal? What is the truth behind these magics? I guess is the real question.
And you talk about how old they are. If they're supposed to be gifts for Jesus, and there wasn't like an exact date, but a couple thousand years old. But that doesn't mean that they were written to give to Jesus. So even if you go back to that, how old are they prior to that even? Who was it that created these, Brian? Like you mentioned, who started all this? Who, came up with the magic itself? Who created this? Who realized that they were able to do it? And where's the power drawn from? Is it demonic or is it holy? Because you show that when we talked about Sandro getting lit on fire, if this guy is literally leading them astray, whether the demon is himself or whether it's because they mentioned in the last episode that they couldn't see the devil himself because otherwise they would like go insane. But who is it that is leading them down this path? And I'm really curious if it's all holy or if it's supernatural or what the context of all these things are at this point. I don't know.
Didn't he say something along the lines of that the devil was living within God or hiding within God or something like that? That
I
demon.
think it was implying that they were like one and the same.
Yeah, like
exactly.
Yeah, because there was all he was giving a whole bunch of information and but then there were similar to what happened in this episode. You start questioning, well, what's true, what's not true? Is it somewhere in the middle? Are we going to learn these truths in this season or in a future season? I think we're going to learn something pretty big soon because I'm going to assume that 30th coins they may get access to it here soon, and we'll see what the hell that leads to. But go ahead.
No, I forgot. I had a point, and then I started thinking of the priest because you just said priest, and I forgot. Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, I will say this much: like what I'm hoping we'll get at the very least is some measure of hope towards the end of the season. Because that's the best you can hope for, at least for your main characters, because the odds are so stacked against them. Just something they can use to fight back, or as you said, they might wind up losing that last coin, and if they do, what's the result? I mean, we have to at least get a sense of what the scale of the danger is if they get that last coin.
Doom and gloom.
Yeah, 1,000 years of darkness. But
I kind of remember. I think I don't know, but they when you talk about the devil and God being basically one and the same, it plays upon what they were talking about at the book of Judas, where Jesus told him to basically be the contradictory term, because in order for his rising to have significance, you needed a villain. So why would God not be his own villain? And why wouldn't it be the God and the devil be the same person? Because without the evil, there is no force driving one way or the other. So it makes sense. I don't know if it's true.
Well, it's the idea for there to be free will, there has to be choice, and for there to be choice, there has to be two opposing forces, and that was
Well, it seems to me like more likely than anything is that they got taken in by this demon's deception. Mixing the truth with a lie, because I mean, if you look at them, they're solely focused on evil. They seem to solely be focused on evil. They say that there needs to be good and evil for free will, but they seem to exclusively be doing the evil, and the evil is already there in the world, and they don't need to necessarily create it. And yet they seem fully devoted to that. So
Sandro made that point in the last or a couple episodes back when he said, when Fabio was laying that out, he was like, yeah, sure, that's fine and all, but you get to choose your role. Yeah. Why is it that you guys are choosing to do these things? He was even upset when Manuel was shooting people. You notice he's like, whoa, dude, you don't have to shoot and kill.
Manuel's like, I'm killing all of them.
Basically, yeah. but you know, the idea of, yeah, choice. Let's see here. So we, Elena and Paco, the Ross and Rachel of our day, I guess. The will they, won't they? I love how, you know, Paco believes that Mario is back, and we'll get into all the Mario stuff here in a second. But you know, he believes he's back, and he's at the bar, and he's drinking, and he's upset. And then when you know, when he finds out the truth that, you know, he was a scarecrow monster, he basically tells Elena, "Look, I want you. This is just this is what I want." And she's like, "Dude, you're married. You're the mayor of this town. You got a lot of shit going on." You know, she's like, how could this work? And he's like, "I don't care." You know, at the graveyard, burying her husband, he's like, "I don't care, man. I want you." And you know, this little romance has been, you know, going all the way back to the first episode, but I've enjoyed the hell out of it, to be completely honest. I like the way they're playing it.
Once again, we talked about the fight between Paco and Marche or Marshy. I don't remember.
It's like Marche or something.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it was. But we talked about how their fight was so realistic. Like, it felt like a legit couple fight. This felt like a legit confession of feelings, because he didn't want to come out and say it, and then she basically kind of forced his hand to be like, "Look, dude, I'm leaving. You can either come with me or not, but I can't stay here." He's like, "But what if bro calls you again? Are you going to go with it?" Like, he kept needing that affirmation, and it felt so lifelike. Like, I've seen it so many times in real life.
I felt it. I was like, I'm like, yeah, dude, I get it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where in a lot of shows that these sort of will they, won't theys feel very fake and very forced, but you know, this one definitely felt on the level, and the fact that, you know, when she was once again when she's ready to storm off, he's like, no, we're here now, let's finish this. But she's just, you know, she's done, she's walking off, and she's like, "You make up your mind. I'm getting out of this town no matter what." You know, and it's and I think we all know that there's no chance she's going to be able to leave that town. She's stuck with it. They're destined to be there for some reason. You know, and I'm pretty sure, you know, as mentioned by the witch in the guise of her husband, you know, the coin will find its way back to her, and she'll find her way back to that town, even if she's on her way to the airport right now in this episode.
Speaking of the witch, like, has she always been there, or did she just get the town? Because Antonio knows about her. He's just like, yeah, there's a, you know, witch. She clearly has hella powers. You know, she can do some shit. She's the one that creates the, you know, Scarecrow Mario. Yeah, I'm very curious about the witch, and we get to see her at the end, so you know she's still around, plotting or, you know, whatever. But I am very curious to how that's going to play in going forward. And will somebody go to Antonio and be like, "All right, what's going on?" Because the guy is always right to some degree, so it's like, write down what he says, and they start investigating, because he's the guy to be talking to right now. But yeah, that whole plot with the witch was pretty over the top.
The witch has the power of diddling outside of people's windows, and it was the most ridiculous. It was one of those things where it was way over the top, but it played into the scene very well. So even the things that are kind of hokey or hammed up, they still go well. The whole time where she's, you know, mimicking what Mario's doing and had that control over him, it was funny, but on the same note, it felt like it was possible. It didn't. I don't want to say that, you know, a giant half spider minotaur or spider centaur or whatever they call that guy with spider legs, it makes it feel real. Even with all its supernatural things, this show does a great job of making you believe all the things are at least.
This is the style of witch stuff that I like in horror fantasy type stories, like the way she's casting spells, and I'm into that style of sort of that horror style.
Well, yeah, and I think it's and y'all have heard me gripe about this over the years about certain shows. For me, if you're gonna create, like, if your show's gonna have wizards or sorcerers or whatever, and if it's gonna be an ongoing thing, Magic needs to have rules, and they have clear rules to a degree, and and they've established those. Like, she can't just resurrect a puppet of her husband and then it does its own thing. She has to control it, personally. She has to control it, which I thought was neat. And I'm also curious, like, and maybe I missed it from last episode. Like, do you all think the witch works with this sort of anti-church that they have, or do you think she's doing her own thing?
To some degree, it's not made completely clear because she wanted the coin. So clearly she wants the coin, but you're right, Larry. Does she want the coin to give to the church, or does she want it for herself for some reason? It's never, I don't think it's ever said in any way, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't recall it being said, what her purpose is for wanting this, or like she may just want this herself. So I'm curious about that. And like you said, I'm also curious, like, the fact that he mentions that Mario just mentions a witch. Like, is that the town witch? Is that just a thing there?
Antonio.
Well, yeah, Antonio. Yeah, then Antonio mentions. Wait, no. It was Jesus who said it. Because he was like that. He's like, that witch brought him back.
I was talking about from the couple episodes ago when he was talking with Murchie in the.
Oh, okay. My mistake. I was like,
she was pushing him out of the hospital, or he was drinking out of the chalice. That's right. Mm-hmm. And he mentions a witch, and he's like, "Yeah, what does he say?" He says, like, "Yeah, there's a witch," and he's coming back, and like he just sort of lays out the next episode, basically.
Okay, well, in that case, that makes my point even more then, because I guess there's just a town witch, like we were saying, because he knows about the witch, Jesus knows about the witch, and it'd be odd for Jesus to know about the witch unless Antonio told him about it,
Or it's his mom.
There's some connection there.
Related to the witch.
It's like that would explain some things about Jesus. He's just kind of an odd character overall.
Speaking of Jesus, so yet again, not crystal clear. We know he kills Mario, hunting, but we don't. I guess it's implied that it's an accident, but I don't think it's ever said. I don't think the word accident is ever said, if I'm not mistaken. And we know how angry he gets and how he flips out constantly in the show. So they're going to cover this whole situation up. Basically, he killed Mario a couple years ago. They're going to go ahead and sort of cover it up. But yeah, what is there more going on with Jesus in terms of a murder potentially that took place in this town years ago?
I 100% think so. Only because of some of the things leading up to that scene. When they show where he was hunting, it would be like hunting in the desert and accidentally shooting somebody. You can't, like, he didn't sneak up on him and he accidentally shot him, or didn't see him until the last second. There's no way that he didn't see Mario. I mean, the animals that he was hunting, he didn't mistake Mario for a coyote or some kind of animal. So that part, I'm like, but it's, Luigi was around too, and then I want to say Peach was there somewhere. But my big question though is that does that have anything to do with the daughter? Because they once again show the daughter, the baby's crying and stuff. Does it have something to do? Did Mario have something to do with the daughter, or did what's his name? The Jesus. Did Jesus just go crazy and kill him? Because, like you said, he didn't say I accidentally shot him. He's like, I killed him.
He's like, well, yeah, it's the sort of thing where Mario has so much of a temper that was that perhaps the wrong call? Well, I think he does. Yeah, exactly. Now I'm thrown off here. But Jesus has so much of a temper that I think it was the wrong call, and I think he did say, it was I believe I heard him say it was an accident. But even if he did, this is Jesus we're talking about, and we've never seen him not be a violent psychopath on this show. So I don't believe him, even if that's what he said. I think he did it on purpose, like Spencer said, in a fit of rage. Maybe he said something. Like he said something. He may have just said something that set him off because Paco, just trying to figure out what's going on, just trying to calm him down, he started shooting at Paco. So it's not hard to believe.
Yeah, he could have just been like, "Well, you get anything today, or did you keep missing like always?" What? Ow!
That was probably the most unrealistic scene in the whole show. That he fired and then nothing hit a Paco. Like, if you saw the way that scene played out, it's a shotgun.
Right.
I was like, what the fuck? Like, nothing hit him. But anyways, yeah, I
depends on the round. If it's birdshot, it's smaller and it spreads a lot. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, he was far enough away to where he still might have got hit, but it might not have done anything.
I didn't think it would kill him. I just figured the way they had the flash.
Yeah, he didn't, like you said, he didn't slow down or nothing.
It's like, well, I mean, we know something's up with Paco now anyway, because the thing is, like, we've seen him stabbed, we've seen his throat nearly ripped out. He probably did shoot him, but it probably didn't hurt Paco.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that. That's something that this show does really well. Continuing, if somebody gets wounded, it carries over to the next episode. It doesn't just disappear. He's had this neck wound, for a couple episodes. Anyone hurt, if you're cut or whatever, it carries over. Your arms hurt or whatever. It's just a detail that a lot of shows sometimes doesn't pay attention to. And by the next episode, they're healed up. And I don't know. It's just a cool little detail that I've noticed. And it's got to be a pain in the ass. Because you're having, the fact that they're tracking the wounds and that they're continuing the makeup from episode to episode, it's just another, quality that this show has that not all shows do.
Agreed. Yeah, and I do love that attention to detail and, dedication to maintaining continuity in the show instead of going, well, this one takes place a little while later. Like, well, how long later? Because that was a serious injury. A little while later, so he's not injured anymore. Because most shows will just make it look like a little bit of time passed and they're perfectly fine after severe injuries. And yeah, like you said, the fact that they maintain that's pretty cool.
The coin. We see the coin is, I guess, consumed by a fish, and this is in the preview. For next week, we see that it's being gifted back to Elena because we're told that the coin will find her. So that leads me to also question another thing, and I was thinking about this. So I guess if you're given the coin, now it's attached to you somehow, maybe, and then it'll always find you. And I'm only assuming this. I'm not 100% sure. And if this is true, then that's another. Manuel was sort of an asshole if he had any thought that this was real. Now I guess you could argue that he's trying to keep it hidden, and so that would be maybe part of why he gives it to this veterinarian. Like, who would suspect she has this fucking coin? But it's going to find its way back to her, and like I said, we got 3 episodes left, so that's a lot of time.
Well,
to have this coin.
Knowing that would be a super shitty thing to do. Just passing it off one at a time because that once it's passed off, you no longer have to deal with it. That I doubt that was his intent, but at this point, they've already established throughout that Manuel's not necessarily on the up and up. He is trying to do what he needs to do to keep this away from them. Like, he knows that this is their goal. He didn't know why necessarily until probably this episode, and he got the full scope of what's going on, but he didn't know the full reason as to why they wanted it. He just knew that they shouldn't have.
So but he knew, and this is something, and maybe it's not even a major detail. But the fact, remember in the first episode, all the guns he had, and so he's bringing all these weapons in. He seems to be like you said. I don't think he knew. He definitely didn't know the full scope of what was going on, but he knew enough to he needed to protect himself, and so he had these guns. He's clearly good with a gun. He knows how to use a weapon. I'm wondering if there's another piece to his past that we've not been told. If there's another little piece, or maybe the showrunner just think he's like, no, I just want him to. It's cool. Maybe it's not that thought out. I don't know.
Yeah, clearly there is a lot of time between the events in the flashback and the Manuel we see now, and it's the sort of thing. I feel like he definitely didn't know. Like Spencer said, he didn't grasp the scope, and he was in denial about the magic and just sort of every sort of mystic element of what's going on now, which is why we had that whole mirror episode for him to reflect. No pun intended there, but that's what that episode was about, and just sort of come to terms with the fact that this is really happening. So I don't think he intended to draw things, this sort of trouble towards her. I feel like he thinks he was perhaps dealing with a more natural issue, like trouble maybe was following him, and maybe not so much even the coin.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think, I don't think he knew the scope of or at least he was clearly trying to. After the exorcism, I think he was trying to tell himself that stuff wasn't real, and had convinced himself
what happened in like divinity school for him and everything when he's studying to be a priest. Given the events there with his three friends, everything between that and the exorcism, he can't that happened to him. That was his life, and he probably believed it then, but probably after the exorcism and everything that went down after it, and all the conflict he was in between that point of receiving the coin and making it to this town, he's probably in denial about the whole thing, because whatever happened, it was so intense that he had to learn how to use and stockpile guns the way that he did. So yeah, I would imagine he's in denial about these things, or trying to find a way to make it make sense in his life, because he doesn't 100% understand it enough to even deal with it. So, I think that was his reaction, is just full blown denial.
Yeah, I don't know for sure where they're headed with that part. Because you look throughout the series so far, and what Manuel has done to protect himself, and talk about the Jason Bourne type of fighting ability, and it was like a treasure trove of weaponry. I don't know that his, like when you said he entered, what did you say it was? What school? Because I didn't. Larry, you just mentioned it. Divinity.
Well, I just said like divinity school or something. I don't know if that's what you call it for Catholic priests.
Either, but when you said it, I was just like, shit, that's what that was called. But when he started doing that, he was older. So he didn't start divinity school, it looked like, when he was a young man. So where does the timeline fill in at? Did he do school first and then all his military training, or was military training first? And then, he was like, I don't want to live this life anymore. I want to follow this. Or I saw something awful that made him, see what he feel was God, and he, took that route. So I don't know what caused him to take the path that he did, but I'm really curious as to, like Brian said, is it just a thing that the director was like, yeah, it'd be cool if you knew how to shoot guns really well, or if he had some kind of military training? And I'm curious as to where the timeline works out.
And you may be onto something with that. Like beforehand, he he experienced something like maybe joined the military and went to war or something because of that, the training and the guns, that just makes all that make sense. And this show doesn't seem haphazardly thrown together like a lot of other shows where it's like, oh, why would this character have a gun? I feel like they have explanations for this because the world just seems too well crafted.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail in this show with the characters and who they are and their actions. But I this is going to be one of those. It's sad to see it go shows. I think there's like 3 left, and it'll be over. Hopefully, we get an announcement soon that they're going to continue it. I know the actor. He got in great shape for this, and need to grab him and shoot another season before he has to do another part, or he doesn't want to maintain the mass.
Well, I want to talk about that budget that they have, though, because I watched this show and I think to myself, a lot of shows like this don't seem to have this budget, or if they do have this budget, they're not applying it correctly.
There's a couple of elements, and I said it earlier, and I'll touch on it really quick here. I think a lot of the benefit of this show is shooting on site, because shooting in these structures, these it makes it feel bigger. It's like the Bond franchise, for instance. They make it a point to shoot on location. If it takes place in this country, they try to shoot it in that country. They try to shoot it at all these major, famous buildings, everything, because it makes the film feel bigger. This show, everything is like real. They're shooting it at these places, and then of course the monster effects on top of that. Now I don't know the guy that the showrunner. I don't know if he has his own effects studio, because he's really into effects. If you watch The Last Circus, there's a lot of crazy ass effects in that too. I don't. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a little research on that and see who does the effects for this, because the shit looks really, really good.
Well,
yeah. Oh,
no, I was just going to say that when you talk about shooting on location, there are a lot more room in the budget for things like the CG, because you don't have to pay as much to build a set. You're not, building all these extra pieces. You're just filming on location. So you're hiring less, grips, and you're hiring less people to build things. You're not spending a shit ton of money on wood and fabrication stuff. You're just like, hey, can we film here? And you get the permit and they let them do it. So I think that it's saved them a ton of money where they're filming. And then on top of that, being able to use whoever it is doing their CG has done a good job. So it's well done.
Well, yeah, but that also begs the question, because just shows like, and I know I compare this a lot, but there's a lot of overlap there. Supernatural, as far as and this is talking about the effects, not so much the locations where they're filming and whatnot. Well, actually, in a way, I am, because given what you all said, they should be saving a lot of money, because they're just kind of filming in the middle of nowhere in America, and it's just so you would think that they'd be able to render some of these creatures the way that this show does, and because like you said, the effects in this show are great. Whereas in something like Supernatural, it's like, oh, we can't even get actual monsters or demons because you guys don't want to spend the tiniest amount of money on an effects budget, to the point where, I mean, how many episodes of that series did you have where they're being dragged by invisible hellhounds? It's
yeah.
And this show isn't pulling any of that, those sort of garbage excuses for effects that show did. It's it really seems like they're going all out, and there are some shows I feel have bigger budgets that aren't doing as well as this show did.
Yeah. I mean, they're using their budget properly on this show. Absolutely, between the soundtrack, the acting, the effects, where they're shooting it. Every aspect of the show is high production, definitely. Like I said, I'm gonna look because I am very curious to the how they're doing it and what the budget in fact is for a show like this. Because you take someone like a Peter Jackson who who runs Weta, his effects studio, and all Lord of the Rings films and everything. That's all done relatively cheap because it's all sort of in house. And so he has all the sound stages and he has the effects teams and it's all done in house. I wonder if there's a similar thing here where there's a small studio that they're able to use and it not cost them as much. I don't know. Or even like Lucasfilm, they did everything in house as well.
Yeah, I think that helps because if you already have people on staff doing that, that's just part of their job instead of hiring specific people for this one series. It probably does cut down the cost a lot to have a group of people that just work for your company instead of outsourcing.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the acting too, because that's another thing I don't think we've talked about a lot. But the acting is really, really good for these characters. It's like for a show like this, it's really good acting. The effects, like everything, is on point. And like I said, very few shows like this seem so well thought out. Also, so it's just overall enjoyable to. I can't think of any gripe that I have about this series, and that's rare for me. For any show,
rare for anything we review. It really is, and you're right. I really can't either at the moment. I mean, maybe in the end, we'll see. But no, I really can't. I don't think we've really. I'd have to think back hard, but I don't think we've really complained about anything on this show. Because we're doing a lot of shows right now, and I have plenty of complaints to go around, even in the ones I like. But yeah, no, this one's doing great. Because even like Your Honor, like I love Your Honor. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a great show, but I have some issues with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would expect, there are certain plot holes or certain things that kind of make you go, really, with Your Honor, like that many coincidences. And this show doesn't even pull that. Everything seems to be, just tightly scripted to the point where it's like, okay, this makes sense because of this and this past episode, and and we know that Jesus and Paco are going to be at each other's throats because they haven't gotten along since episode 1 in the first place. So
I don't know because they she said in this episode that even if Roke called her, she was like, nope, I have no interest in going back to him. And clearly she does. And, he just happened to go to the restaurant that happened to have the coin that happened to be in the fish that he picked. Now, I get what you're saying. I was just fucking with you. But because they wrote it into the story. Like they mentioned that right before that scene that, hey, the coin's going to find its way back to you. So and it's just one line of dialogue that made it make sense.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. The one big coincidence we have here is part of the story. It's like, of course that happens because he's cursed and this is her curse, or at least seemingly cursed as far as we know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What the girl? What's her name? The one that cut her face open.
Yeah.
Did you see in the preview? It shows her sticking a blade in her mouth again. I'm like, no.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's like, oh no.
See, I told you, man. This town's going to wind up like a Twin Peaks. The people in it are just going to be messed up and damaged due to all these things that are happening. They're just like it's going to be a very weird little town, and I think underneath this big, seemingly global conspiracy, we're also getting a lot of weird small town drama, and that town is just going to remain the weird focal point of this series, or at least that's what the feeling I'm getting now. By season's end, I may be proved wrong. Heck, I may be proved wrong next episode. She might actually go to Paris, and then we're spending part of the time in Paris, for all I know.
Like real Paris, like Paris, France, or are they coming to Paris, Tennessee?
Wouldn't that be something if that's what they were talking about? Since he was asking her to go to Paris, Tennessee with her. He's like, I know this guy, the Tiger King.
Yeah, that's all my notes. Y'all got anything else? 30 coins.
I'm just curious if that creature's still wandering around the sewer.
Dude, yeah, for real. Going back to the beginning, it's like, I told you, man, there's no way in hell I could stay in that town. That'd be the thing I'd be, if I was her, I'd be like, no, remember that shit we fought?
Yeah, it seems now as like the only sane person is Elena for trying to fucking
I hope
out.
I hope if Paco tries to stop her again, that that's her reasoning. She's like, we still haven't addressed the thing in the sewer, Paco. We haven't addressed that on top of everything else that's happening. There's a literal monster in the sewer.
A baby monster. Yeah, exactly. But all right, yeah, 30 coins, episode number 5, 3 episodes left. So definitely tune in for those reviews. WandaVision. If you're into WandaVision, if you're into Marvel, check out our WandaVision review. We got the first 3 episodes up, and yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.